Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening to talk with these amazing panelists about their awesome organizations. My name is Alicia Andrews. I am a director at a nonprofit called Campus Compact. We focus on racial justice and equity in education. As Barkley mentioned, I'm an alumni from the spring 2020 cohort, and I really support the Chinook Fund's mission and the work that these amazing organizations do. I think in my lifetime, I haven't witnessed a government that works yet. So the way that things get accomplished for people who share identities that I have and come from neighborhoods like the ones that I came from are through community organizing. So it's exciting to be here, and I'm so honored to be able to be your class-conscious Oprah tonight. Before we begin, I want to give an introduction to Juliet Lee, who will talk about the Chinook Fund and the goal of the Giving Project. Juliet is the Chinook Fund Program Director.
That's right. Thank you so much, Alicia, and thank you all for joining us here this evening. As the Program Director of Chinook Fund, it's my honor to direct the Giving Project, through which many of you all have been invited to participate in this webinar, and through which our incredible grantee community is funded. So a little bit about Chinook Fund. Our organization supports grassroots organizing work on issues of social and economic justice. By pooling our collective resources, we see groups making a positive systemic impact to improve the quality of life for all Coloradans. And I think you'll see that on full display through the grantee narratives and the leadership of the community members that we have here on this call. A little bit about the Giving Project. It's our social justice community leadership program that brings together a diverse cohort of about 25 people who are passionate about social change and interested in developing new skills in fundraising, grant making, and community building. Over the course of 6 months, they commit to meeting 12 times. Through workshops and trainings, they'll develop a shared understanding of race, class, and power within our society. Each participant who joins makes a meaningful financial gift to help seed the grant fund. They also commit to fundraising from their friends, family, and community to support the financial goal of the grant fund and the group. And that is the way that we fund all of the incredible organizations that you're going to hear from tonight. Our staff supports Giving Project members through these facilitated trainings and in coaching. And also our cohort members through the Giving Project serve as our grant makers. They visit with all of the grant applicants, they review the grant applications, they convene together and using a consensus decision-making process, determine the allocations for the grant awards at the end of their 6-month cycle with us. So just know that if you've been invited by a Giving Project member, you're invited by someone who cares deeply about this work, who's doing this in solidarity with the leaders that you're going to be hearing from tonight. And there's opportunities for you to get involved. You can either talk to the member who invited you or just stay on this call with us and you'll hear a little bit more about how to learn how to apply with us. So that's my spiel, and I'll send off to the true leaders here in this space.
Thank you, Juliet. I appreciate it. So I want to start by just giving a shout out to all of the people on the call who have participated in the past Giving Projects. Thank you for coming back and showing support. I also want to welcome all of the people who are new to the Chinook Fund tonight. Thank you for spending some time with us to learn about these amazing organizations. Just some of the things that we'll be covering tonight is really to learn directly from Chinook Fund grantees about their organizational strategies, their victories, and their challenges. We definitely want to have the opportunity to share what community organizing looks like in different contexts and providing different examples and why that's important. And then additionally, specifically for the Chinook Fund Giving Project members, to think critically about their roles as grant makers and funders. So that is sort of how it's gonna go. We will do a moderated panel, and then we'll follow that up with Q&A for the panels. So if you do have questions, definitely drop those in the chat box. And we will first do a set of questions for the panelists to answer that we've generated, and then we will take those questions from the audience immediately after that. I know that we can't see you too well, but if you could just give us a little bit of energy and some jazz hands or applause, if you're excited to be seen in your social community. I'm just imagining you all are doing that right now, but you don't have to. I think it will be great for us to move on to being able to hear from our leaders in the communities. So thank you, panelists, for joining us and sharing about your organization. We have a wonderful group of folks with us today. We have Amy Brown from Black Lives Matter, 5280, Ricardo Perez from Hispanic Affairs Project, Maurice Ka from Creative Strategies for Change, Nancy Ray Clark from Herbal Gardens Wellness, and Dr. Damian Thompson from Frontline Farming. So I wanna give you all the opportunity to introduce yourself, your pronouns, your organization, and describe what you're working on right now. And then we'll dive into some questions. Amy, would you like to start us off?
Happy to. Thank you, Alicia. Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Brown. I'm one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter 5280, which is Denver's charter chapter of the Black Lives Matter Global Network. And our chapter is excited, very excited to be working on acquiring property that will house our Freedom School. It'll have multi-purposes, but really excited to be literally building blocks into the community after 5 years of hard work building relationships and raising funds with supporters like Chinook. So thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Amazing, thank you, Amy. Next, Ricardo, would you like to go?
Hello, everyone. This is Ricardo Perez, the director of the Hispanic Affairs Project in Western Colorado. I am living in Montrose, immigrants, first generation. I'm very happy to participate with many people supporting Chinook Found, which is an amazing organization. My pronouns is he, him, his.
And Ricardo, can you share with us a little bit about what you all are working on in the Western Slope?
We are organization, it's a very grassroots organization working with immigrants, first generation. 21% of the population here in the Western Slope are immigrants. We have many people living in the rural and urban areas. So our work from the beginning is organizing leadership development and making a policy change with the participation of our immigrant community. Our goal is the immigrant integration and to overcome racism, inequality, and to promote social justice. Actually, is to bring social justice understanding in a very conservative rural American as is the Western Slope in Colorado.
Thank you, Ricardo. Next, we have Maurice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maurice Ka. I wear a few different hats in the city of Denver, where I live and love and do a lot of work, especially now during challenging times. But how I join us today, along with some really fierce co-panelists, is I am a facilitator and consultant with Creative Strategies for Change. Creative Strategies for Change is an organization that's been around since 2011, 2012. And really, our overarching kind of aim is we really believe in bringing like arts engagement and education to impact social justice. Moves like in our city, in our culture, in our time. And so in that we work with individuals, organization, youth groups, to do that through a variety of different ways, consulting, workshops, trainings on the basics of like diversity, equity, inclusivity, and really looking at all those pieces, whether it's with youth or with community members, whether it is with institutions. We're looking at, really how to like dismantle and disrupt kind of like white supremacy cultural norms, embody equity, look at what is placing racial justice, at the top of our list. What does that look like in community, and how can we do that through all those different ways, individuals, institutions, and organizations. And so that happens in a lot of different ways. And what are we doing? What are we not doing? Is the question. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So thank you all, Chinook Fund, for having me. And I'm really excited to be here and talk with my co-panelists.
Thank you so much. Nancy?
Danjo, she Nancy Ray from Herbal Gardens Wellness. I am a member of the Apache Nation of Colorado, Carolinas Tribe Mountain Buffalo Band. And before I go any further, I just want to talk about what we do in Native social justice by giving you an example. So I'd like to welcome you all to our homelands. The land that you're on and the property that you're purchasing belongs to 48 nations, tribes, and bands of families that have survived genocide to be here in this time of climate change to help you, to guide, to work alongside you, to create unity, and to correct the social wrongs that have occurred since the inception of 1492 and the arrival of the Roman Catholic government in many ways over that course of time. I would like to welcome you to my homeland, where my great-grandmother came in 50 AD, and that we stewarded for 14,000 years in a clean way, in a good way, and made good relationships with all of the 48 nations, tribes, and bands that have been here before you. I'd also like to honor the four-legged, the buffalo, and welcome back the bato, the wolf, to the Western Slope, who will be visiting Ricardo, I'm sure, for some really good prayer and some really good hearts, because I know that he works hard for his people. I want to acknowledge the Black Lives Matters groups for speaking up and for providing us a pathway forward together, and for attending in Standing Rock, as my daughter June Buglinch loves to remind our organizations and every one of our members of our community. So as we go forward, I also want to acknowledge the Nuchu, the Utes. There's 3, North, South, and in Utah, the Uinta and the Ouray tribes, the Lakota, the Dene people that are very much a part of the Denver community and throughout the region, and all the detribalized Apaches who were detribalized not because we all chose to be detribalized, but we are here in this time together to path way forward the red road and to come together in peace and unity and to see what we can do when we put our hearts and minds and our work behind it. So what we're doing currently in social justice is we're actually in litigation right now on 35 acres that was donated. Surprisingly, it's not 1491, but we actually have somebody who's trying to cross the land and demands that he has a right to do so. Fortunately, the law firm of Anthony Garcia and the donations that came in from the Chinook Fund just recently will be going to litigation. So we are standing for our rights to protect our homelands, to protect this holy and sacred place of our ancestors, where our ancestors are buried and unburied without our permission. And we want to share with all of you that we know that we do have a lot of work to do, and that we're here as an organization and as a people to see that work completed in a good way. So thank you for allowing me to speak. To my elders who are watching, I love you. Please mask up, Colorado, and keep our elders safe. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I appreciate that acknowledgement as well. And our last person, last but not least, Dr. Damian Thompson.
Ashe, Nancy Ray, thank you very much for that welcome. It was exciting to hear you speak, so thank you for giving us that energy. My name is Damian Thompson. I'm a professor at Regis University, but I'm also the co-founder of Frontline Farming, and I also direct our Center for Food Justice and Healthy Communities. Some of the things we're working on, so Frontline Farming, first of all, we farm, right? So we're just coming off of our farming season, probably one of our most successful seasons in the 5 or 6 years that Fatima Ahmad and I, my co-founder, have been together. So we did some bang up work growing food. You can actually see a lot of the produce, the end of the season spoils here from the end of the season. So we are working on food access. So we rescue about 1,000 pounds of food per week and distribute that to various partners in and around Denver, including organizations that support women and children in crisis, organizations that support our indigenous and also our immigrant communities. We work in the area of food justice. And so for us, food justice means policy. So one of the things we did, have been doing since the inception of the COVID pandemic, we've been working with the Colorado Food and Farm System Response Team, and have supported things like the Respond and Rebuild Fund, where we distributed in our first 2 rounds about $390,000 to small and medium-sized farmers, with a special emphasis, and about 95% of those dollars went to Black, Indigenous, POC farmers, new and beginning farmers, and female farmers, who are actually 80% of the small farmers in Colorado. One of the things that has taken us into is Project Protect Food Systems and the Project Protect Promotora Network. Project Protect Food Systems is a collective of organizations, individuals, activists who are really doing the work of trying to figure out how to best support food systems workers during the COVID crisis. And out of that, we have been able to, through some dollars from Colorado Department of Health and Environment, start a Promotora network. So we have Promotoras, community outreach workers, health advocates in every region in the state of Colorado, working and outreaching to farm workers, people who are working on the ground, some of the most vulnerable folks that I think, as Ricardo was speaking to, some of the most vulnerable people in our rural communities as it relates to COVID, and really having that community supported advocacy piece to really understand what those issues are, and then to respond to them, not from a centralized location, but to figure out how to leverage resources on the community level to get to the people who are doing that hard work of harvesting the crops that feed us. And lastly, one of the really important things that we're doing, in addition to, or in similarity to BLM 5280, is we're embarking on our own land campaign. And so we really understand that without land sovereignty, there is no food sovereignty, there is no justice. And so that's one of the things that Frontline is going to be doing in the next year or so. So appreciate the opportunity to share. Look forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing the very powerful work that you're doing. I appreciate it, and I'm so excited to learn about these amazing organizations. With that, let's shift gears into the questions. So I just want to start with just some questions that everyone can answer. And so my first question is, what are your organization and community's unique gifts? And you can all just jump in.
Okay, I'll jump in. Powwow style. The unique gifts of our community are our families. They are the resilience and endurance of love of 1,000 years, of 1,000 ancestors. I think somebody sent me ancestral math. I'm trying to think, I think it might have been Thundercloud Trujillo, but it was almost like 24,000 people have had to have met before something to create your life for you to be here in this time. And, you know, when I think about all of our communities, including those that are immigrant communities, those that have followed here after our native families, I think about what we have in common. And those things that are in common is that love of family. That's a unique gift. It's faith during difficult times. That's a unique gift. It's sharing. Damian, I wanted to thank him personally. I know that he's done some good for our community directly, has directly impacted that. So when I think about the endurance, when I think about the beauty of our children feeling safe dancing in the center of powwow, March Powwow at Denver Coliseum, which for the very first time didn't happen this year. I think about the joy and the prayer and the faith and the endurance and the beauty of every single member of our community across Turtle Island to stand in faith and to be the change. And I want to shout out to our Dene and Apache communities in Arizona and say, yeah, y'all did it all across this nation. Y'all got that vote out and you rocked it and you weren't intimidated. And that's what I'm talking about, because we are heart and we are logic and we are universal actualization. And we're all going to continue to work together to make these things happen. And that's the unique gift of my community, forgiveness.
I would like to mention something about our experience as organization and individuals in the Western Slope. Probably the unique, the Hispanic Affairs Project and our members board are giving to the Western Slope is we believe in the people. The sense of the community organizing is very, very important. In my personal experience before, I had many trainings about community organizing and leadership development. And I found something here in working close with other organizations. This is the Principles of Community Organizing. It's a 265 page. It's a big book, but very interesting because it's a very good description how to organize in the reality in those communities in the United States. So I came with the experience from organizing in Central America during the Civil War, participating over there, in Guatemala as well, a little bit in the south of Mexico with the Zapatistas, a little bit, but coming to United States in a very divided by the race and the racism, very white dominant in the Western Slope. So just to say we are community organizer was a big trouble. I remember in 2009 when we were trying to register the Hispanic Affairs Project as a new nonprofit organization in the Western Slope. We were looking for how to register, and we didn't find the word, the concept social justice, immigrants' rights, civil rights. Just was we were, I think we found like education or community service, something like that, because this idea, the dominant idea in those areas, rural America, is focusing charity. When we are talking about justice, when we are talking about the community organizing, people say, what's that? What are you exactly doing? So our gift, our contribution to our communities is just to believe that people, individuals, including undocumented people, we are working with many undocumented people, everyone has a voice, dignity, respect, and we can change our reality, our social and economic systems. We can do it. We had the experience having undocumented people traveling from Montrose, Grand Junction to Washington, D.C. to speak with the senators for first time, having this experience, empowering ourselves to make a real change in our community. Another gift is the respect, the collaboration, the trust we had in our communities. The Hispanic Affairs Project, originally we started in 2005, 2006, until today. Our elected officials, other agencies, organizations are very strong working with us in order to make a change in our community. So I think this is very important for us to get the recognition as well from many people and to work together for something better for our communities.
I would be remiss to not say that I know the unique gift that Black Lives Matter 5280 and the community we serve brings to the table is Blackness and all that it encompasses, which is, so, as Nancy spoke about, the history, the decades and centuries of pain and struggle, but the love through all of that, the string of perseverance and love and determination that has truly written our story for these thousands of years. I think as an organization, our unique gift is, we are one of the few orgs in Denver that is and has always been for Black people, run by Black people. And I'm incredibly proud 5 years later as a co-founder that we have not changed our values. The same demands we have of those in power from our founding date, we still have now, and the same meetings that we turn down, we will turn them down until the demands are met. So we haven't caved to pressures that want to corporatize the Black Lives Matter movement. We haven't caved to politicians or leaders who are prominent public figures who want to co-opt the movement and the name for purposes that have nothing to do with the actual liberation of Black people. So I think, besides the divine gift, the truly divine gift of Blackness, the beautifully Black group of people that we work with, it's just our uncompromising approach to the work of Black liberation in Denver and the communities surrounding Denver.
Maurice from CSE here. When I think about what are the unique gifts and talents of our organization and our community, I would say that it is the community. Within CSE, there is a lot of different entry points for folks to interact with us and how we interact with other folks, whether it's like the open mics, monthly ciphers, the visiting artists, the facilitators, the admin staff, the people who I'm definitely very, very grateful for today which is our tech people, since we're doing a lot more online. It really is a community in that there's so many folks who represent CSC and make impact, both impacting our organization and impacting in community. We have everybody, we have lots of musicians, MCs, DJs, to folks who are working with organizations looking at doing long-term coaching, and monthly caucusing, et cetera. So there's just a wide range of folks who represent CSC and make the impact, that we talk about in our mission statement. So it's like me as a facilitator, me as a consultant, I go out and I get to be impacted by folks who engage what we offer. And so it's really a two-way street between, the kind of inside team or the admin team of the folks who are, in their day in and day out, as well as those who experience us. And prior to COVID, we had a very much so literally an open door policy where folks tend to walk in and say, who are you? What do you do? And those folks generally leave there being a part of the CSC family. So I would say it is community, because I get to go in spaces where folks have never experienced me as one of the service offerings and get to see the CSC piece in action as a community member. So it really is community, and it really is this kind of ebb and flow, that kind of queers what an organization or what a social change, like what the nonprofit kind of world says that we're supposed to be, is that there's so many representatives, and the teaching really goes back and forth.
This is great. I have so many things to say. I think in terms of gifts, there is a lot of resonance with resilience, and then also thinking about ancestors, and for those of us on this panel who are Black, and kind of representing and understanding, what our people went through. Not that it's, it's not the oppression Olympics, but really to understand that, to get to this land where we can be in conversation with Indigenous people, and people who are immigrated from other places, I think is really powerful to recognize what it took to make it across the ocean, what it took to go through enslavement, to acquire land, to acquire education, to fight for the right, to vote and to do so many other things. And I think that, so, we carry that with us. And I recognize that in my community, or as I think what Maurice was saying, the communities also with which I engage. So I recognize that there's that strength that kind of exists across all of our stories. I really was loving it when Ricardo said, we believe in the people, because it's, we're asset based. We believe in the people, and, and then we are also the people. It's like we don't have an organization where have the organization and then the people are over there. We have the organization and the community is over there. Like, we came from the community, we are the community. And so when we say we believe in the people, we believe in ourselves, we believe in our capacities, and just as an example, a couple of weeks ago, we had this health training, that was important. It was all in Spanish. And then we also found some local folks who could come in at the last minute and translate into Arabic. And then we also found, Franklin Cruz, who's a local artist, but also, he's a scientist, and and so he came in and did some translation and provided the cultural relevance for the conversation, and so all of those people were our people. We didn't have to go far to find those people. And so that's what we mean when we say asset based. ethics and values kind of at the heart of it, whether, you know, you talk about trust or love or respect for one another and respect for the natural world. I feel like those are the strengths that we definitely as an organization carry forward. And we got those from our community, right? We were enveloped in those values. And so it comes from us, from the heart, from way back. And then, you know, the history of struggle, you know, and like everyone speaking to, whether it's a contemporary struggle or if it's an ancient struggle, you know, and it's the same struggle. You know, that ancient struggle is this struggle. You know, and even thinking about Frontline and thinking about the necessity to start our own organization that is Black run, that is Women X led, you know what I mean? To make sure that people understand that that's our story and this is our work. And so not to have that work represented or taken, you know, taken credit for by other entities. So, you know, those are some of the things that I just kind of wanted to resonate with the conversation.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question for you all. If you could answer, how do you know when you're moving forward? And how do you know when you're building power and creating change? What do those indicators look like to you?
I'll take the first shot at this. I think for me, and I think this is probably true for all of the panelists because of the nature of the work that we try to do and the nature of community organizing. It's the benefit of it, and this is true in farming as well. The benefit of it is that you get to see the fruits of your labor, you know, and in so few instances do people actually get to see that. And so whether it be through farming or whether it be through making sure that food gets to communities that need it, or whether, you know, we can get feedback on, you know, the work that we're helping to support in other communities, which we're getting, you know, feedback. I think that that's the barometer, you know, and it's not, you know, this kind of work is interesting because it's not about your logo. You know, everybody, I mean, like having a cool logo is amazing and like that's dope, but it's the work. It's the work that people know you for. It's the work that you're respected for. It's the work that gets you invited to panels so that you can be in conversation with other people. And so, you know, it's almost as if you know you're making progress because you know you're doing the work, and the work takes you forward. And then you can see the fruits of that labor in so many different places. So.
Yeah, I think for our organization, a metric of success is really, we start to see people from the community becoming their own activists, their own advocates. They're exploring those channels to what we've been told are positions of power and realizing, you know, they can challenge them. They can organize the resistance against wrongdoing. We had a student from our Freedom School send in a letter about how, you know, SROs are dangerous to students and not conducive to learning. And, you know, that wasn't anything we prompted them to do. They learned some of that in the Freedom School, but seeing them take that action, seeing folks in our community learning that, you know, we take care of us, seeing the spirit of mutual aid spreading from neighborhood to neighborhood, street to street, block to block, that, you know, we are the ones who are going to keep ourselves housed, fed, healthy, loved on, protected. Seeing that spirit spread throughout our community for us is definitely a metric of success. I think you can, it's easy to fall into the idea of, you know, seeing more Black Lives Matter yard signs means we're succeeding. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's a metric of success. I think that's a cosmetic metric of success that is nice to see, but doesn't necessarily lead to the types of changes we're looking for. But really seeing the community take this on themselves is the way that I know we've built power, and the way that I know that we're moving forward, because our folks are moving us forward, and it's beautiful to watch.
I have a couple comments. We have several programs in our work and also campaigns working in policy. Something we did it for a long time, we were thinking how to create immigration legal assistance in Western Slope, because in 200 miles square, we didn't have this service. And we had many issues with low-income families taking assistance from people, business with no authorization to do it, and making a real mess, destroying the lives of many people trying to get some immigration status. So we decided to do it, and was a bunch of immigrants like me applying before to the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, and we were scratching the head to say, maybe never the Homeland Security will accept our application. However, they did it with the accreditation, the recognition as organization to provide immigration legal assistance in April 2015. By then, we were helping many families, individuals, for example, recently in the last year, to become citizens, to vote. So many of those members in our communities who never vote in Mexico, they told us for the first time, they were asking for help how to vote, how to participate in the political systems. So we were very proud. Was something from years like pondering to do it or not, and we did it. And now we are seeing how years later having this good outcome. The another one, and this is probably a little different to organizing, but we were trying in the beginning with the sheep herders, those workers coming from South America, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, many years ago, working in the sheep industry, sheep herders with the H-2A visa. They were over 900 workers not only in Colorado, but in 9 states. We had 100 of workers in the sheep industry. They were victims of labor trafficking. So we were trying to organize, and was impossible because every worker was separate from the other one for months and working under the control from the employer. So in a very aggressive industry, the sheep industry, and a lot of power. And we decide in the last minute, we say, okay, the only alternative is to do a lawsuit. And we did it in 2014, 2015, a lawsuit against this industry, but we did it directly to the Department of Labor and the Department of Homeland Security. So, and we won. We received in the Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia to say the Hispanic Affairs Project representing those workers is right. And the Court of Appeals gave us the victory. So we had this capacity to overcome a very labor trafficking system with workers coming for 3 years to United States. Many indigenous with zero English, zero including Spanish, because they are coming from Huancayo, from Peru, the indigenous from Incas, from South America. So, and the attorney, our lawyers say, guys, this small organization made the huge victory over the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Labor in one single chat. You did it. They say, so, and now we are in a different time, different momentum supporting our sheep herders, but this is those specific times when we say what we are doing is the right thing, and maybe this is taking years, but we get it, and we need to do it.
Thank you, Ricardo.
So I think that's such a powerful question, because the way in Native community that I know that we're moving forward is the more I see the same people standing up for different causes, but for the right purpose, the ethical purpose of humanity. So I'm going to give you an example. In our organization, we work with intersections. What that means is that through two occupations, first the Spanish government, and then the United States government, which, by the way, Colorado is coming up on only its 148th year of United States occupation. So if that puts that into context, I was born 100 years into the occupation of the United States, and I'm going to be 48 in January. So during this time of occupation, being able to see our people come together for the Four Directions March, seeing 6 organizations working together at the Colorado Commission of Indian Affairs, having conversations in San Luis about water protection with Shirley Romero Otero and the Land Rights Fund, which the Chinook also was a very good supporter of, and your cohorts have made a huge difference for our Native community. And I want to thank everyone at this point in time who's participated or thinking about joining and helping, because you really do put forth a lot of good things. We had the Land Rights Council, the Land Rights Fund with Shirley Romero Otero have land. Now we're having those conversations about what is water, how do we protect the water here? And that's, as many of you know, is a continuation of the work that we all did together in 2016 to support Standing Rock. We know we're moving forward when we get a call from a treaty council and we see another victory at the Supreme Court that we helped provide some of the research and education for. We see a victory, and we know that we're doing well when we have families that stay together through the fatherhood program at DICI. We know that we're moving forward when Sky Yarborough every Tuesday and Thursday without fail and every Sunday without fail has held talking circles in space online for our community to join in. And she is an intersection of Black and Catawba. And I know when Amber is working in Fort Collins on Together Fort Collins, and I get an email saying that they're looking at gardens. I know when previous cohort supporters like Amber Cote, Banu, come bring donations, connect us with someone like Damian to get food dropped off somewhere to our people. With Metro Caring Denver and the food program, they helped us with the COVID funds from Colorado that started this year, to PeaceWorks, Mountain PeaceWorks, who helped us start a domestic violence and sexual assault program, because in Native community, even though I spoke to several foundations directly and in person to plead our case and to ask for support, it was the Chinook Fund and the cohort who provided the funding for 2 years that have given us the opportunity to provide telehealth, COVID screenings, COVID direct testing, being able to send out Mountain Rose Herbs, send us over $4,000 worth of dried flowers, roots, and leaves that we could send out to help people survive through COVID. And, you know, I never thought I would be saying this, but I really want to thank Governor Jared Polis, because he really showed up. And it wasn't easy for them to really listen to some of the things we were asking, like, please, everyone mask up. You can be a carrier, the virus can be in your nose, and your people are walking around hanging the mask off, and our elders are getting sick. And that's not just one person. For us, one person, one contact in our organization is a minimum of 5 to 7 people that we're impacting, because our communities are here and they're on reservations, which, please remember, were started as prison of war camp. So when we see ourselves moving forward, what does that look like after COVID? What does that look like through the transition of all the politics and policies are going on? I'll know we're moving forward when I'm sitting across the fire from you all. When we're sitting around the fire and we're not talking about this, we're not talking about anything but heart and mind and children and elders, and what are we doing together to feed them, to clothe them, to house them. And not just one community of a section, but coming together as human beings, human becomings. If you're not ready to be very solid in your ethics, then, and you can't be a being yet, you can be a becoming. You can be stumbling and practicing. It's okay. We've all been there. We all do it. You know, none of us are perfect. But when we can acknowledge that we accept our differences and that these differences are beautiful, and that I'm having a conversation with Ricardo over the fire about how amazing it is that he has done this for the Hispanic community, which are also indigenous people. Some of them are 35% or more indigenous bloodlines. We have 9 different bands of different concentrations of Apache here in Colorado that are detribalized, that are retribalizing. So I know when Colorado can acknowledge the history and that we can sit around the fire together as spirits, human beings of love and compassion and universal healing, then I know that we have found our way forward together, not just my community, but together a united human being and human becoming ability of family to remember Nigotsan, grandmother earth, that we are all part of this process in this universe, and that we all can make the decision and the choice to show up and show up in a good way to do good things for each other. That's when I will know we're moving forward.
Man, I can't go after Nancy. I have to start talking before Nancy goes. It's hard to.
You have such a big heart, and we couldn't be us without you. You go on, Mo. You speak it from your heart, because we love you, and you've helped all of us. And I know you. I know what you've done for us, and I thank you for that.
For me, when we're building, how do we know when we're building power and change making, is manifesting in front of us? I mean, it's a question that we have on a consistent daily basis within the organization. But I would just say, for me, I feel like we know it's happening when, for example, like community members or program participants, but we like to say community members, when they go from folks who, engage, something that we've done, and they become board members, right? Or when they become staff members, or when I walk into meetings and there's all these people in the meeting and I have no idea who they are and they all seem to know who I am, right? But there's this level of deep engagement, and where folks, who have experienced one of our kind of programs, if you will, end up joining the family. That seems to happen pretty consistently. And I would also say it has to do, we know that there's something happening around the lines of like power and change making, I think, by the nature of demands and requests that we get, from our community members. And so I say it's change making and power, because a lot of times, like, we get requests that, about, things that are the programs that we, like, haven't like manifested or done before. And so we're always being changed, and we're always being challenged by our community folks, by, clients who want to call in emergency sessions, who want to do after follow-ups with us, who say they need an emergency meeting, and we go to the emergency meeting and they're just really asking us about, or telling us or updating about this project they've been brewing that, we didn't know anything about. And we get to kind of support them or just witness what they do kind of after they experience us and kind of those relationships. So I feel like the question around how do we know change is happening and how do we know power is becoming a thing is because we're consistently challenged by our communities. And I don't think that can happen without the spirit of change making, without the spirit of revolution, without the spirit of giving birth to new ideas that seem to happen through our doors. And so one thing I think that, how we engage our community, what happens is that it's very challenging. People ask us lots of questions. So we're always trying to figure out how do we create these spaces and think tanks for the ways in which people feel like they can access it. So I feel like because people feel like they have, or they let us know that they have open access to us, that no conversation is off limits, that has something to do with change and power, happening there, the way they hold us to task and the way they challenge us.
Those were amazing.
See, that was good.
I think we've got a few more minutes. So I want to ask another question that can be answered by everyone. What do you want people here to take away about the programming and the work that you do that they wouldn't find on your website or they wouldn't know from being in? I see some deep sighs, but they wouldn't know if they had no familiarity with your organization.
Well, folks would know this by looking at our website, actually. But I think it's really what everybody's talked about so far, and what Frontline Farming really, reminded me or drove home is that we do this work, and we don't do it from a charity standpoint or a caretaking standpoint. We really do it because we feel like our liberation individually as members that make up, both the staff, volunteers, board, participants, community members. We understand that our liberation is bound up in this social justice, piece, and that it's a process. And it's a process that's always under review and always fine-tuned. So we do it not to extend hands or to others, but because we understand that, like, my liberation is bound up in everyone else's, right? And we talk about like legacies and histories and we do community, we do you for us, right? Like, I am because we are because I am. And so it's really like the people's, or it's really the community's organization. So I look at how much, like, our DEI workshop or our facilitator workshop has changed. It changes every single time because of what people demand. And sometimes people demand a format change in the middle of the training. And we stop and we do that because that's what is alive. Like, our agenda doesn't mean anything if the people in the room want more time and they can't get it. So we stop. Like, our time is your time is our time. You want it, you got it, let's go. And so I would say it's about us. It's not about service, it's about us.
I would love to answer this on just for the members of my crew who I feel like would want the folks to know this. There's a lot that I think people don't realize from our webpage or from our Facebook page. I think first and foremost, people don't realize there's 8 to 10 of us in BLM 5280. We're small. We're not like, I think people think of us in like a control room with black berets and, matrix style computer graphics, and, there's 8 of us and we're Black. So we're functioning every day through trauma, the exact trauma that people write to us about, the exact trauma that people look to us for action on. We're traumatized by it. We are living with PTSD from actions that have become violent. We're living with scars and wounds from our own brutalization by law enforcement, our own brutalization by white supremacy. So all of the things that people look to BLM 5280 and the Black Lives Matter movement for, we suffer from as well. So we're coming from a place of deep love for Blackness, deep love for community, deep belief in our resilience and our ancestors. And we're also coming from pain and trauma and exhaustion and depression and anxiety and agoraphobia and anything else you could imagine. So that's the first thing. I also think it's really important for community to know the answer to this question that we get a lot, which is, where are y'all? Where were y'all? Why weren't y'all in the street? Why didn't you plan an action? Why didn't you boycott? Why didn't you shut it down? Is the question that we get so much. And I understand the question, and I appreciate it. I appreciate that people in our community know that we are an organization who's not afraid to show up and cause conscious disruption and strategic disruption. That's 100% true. What I also want people to know, and what I think we all want people to know, is that we take very seriously the fact that we've cultivated a community of Black people that centers Black women, Black femmes, Black queer people, Black trans people. And you got to have a real strong argument for us as to why we put those people in harm's way. Because we're clear, anytime we take the streets, the most marginalized among us are who are going to take the brunt of the punishment. Those are the ones who are going to take arrests, who are going to get the beatings, the bruisings, all of it. So we try to be very intentional when there is an action, when there's a police murder, when there's a horrific event in the news. We know we see it, we're hurting, we're furious. We want to be in the street immediately like everyone else. And at the same time, we take very seriously responsibility to keep our people safe. We take very seriously the reality that there are white people and people with white privilege and white passing privilege who can be on those front lines long before we need to call our community to take beatings, to take arrests that could jeopardize their employment, their housing, their custody arrangements. So we analyze situations very carefully. We look at what do we gain from taking to the streets, to shutting it down? Is there strategy there? Or is there something we can do from the safety of our home that actually delivers a result to our community? We could be in the streets yelling, shouting and protesting about our local government's poor handling of, giving people funding for their housing and for rent, and for how long it took Governor Polis to put an end to evictions during COVID. Absolutely, we could do that. We might get our skulls cracked doing that. We value our skulls. We value our Black lives. So can we, from the safety of our homes and our community, could we develop a program in which we can get people the money to stay in their homes safely? That route, it's not as glamorous, it's not as flashy, it's not in the papers, but guess what? 25 families are in their homes for 2 months in a row because we took that approach, So I want people to know we don't take anything lightly. We don't feel we have the luxury to pop off and shut things down. And it's not because we don't care. It's because we would do anything and everything before we call our community into the streets and put them in danger. And we believe that there's many, many, many paths to victory and many strategies that can yield better results without the harm that direct action often inflicts on the most marginalized of our people.
Can I mention something from Amy? Just thinking how the momentum we are facing right now. The American society is divided, but also a big challenge. It's the minority groups. We are divided among us. And the big question is how we can unify the communities of colors, minority groups, to come together for a goal, common goal. Because after the last election, we can see how just talking for the Latinos, we are very diverse in ourselves. It depends if we are Cubans or we are Central American or from Mexico. Probably we can have a different tendency in our political vision, in our political perspective. So if we want to liberate our communities, our organizing capacity, energy needs to go to identify the way how to connect with others, because we are facing the same racism, but also fascism, because what is happening in the last 4 years, it's exactly like a fascist system. And I remember when I was a kid in my country, in El Salvador, facing the political, the government, the environment, I was starting feeling recently in the last 4 years, like, this looks like El Salvador, a little banana republic, but how we can put our energy in this direction in order to be stronger, collaborating with others, and not only in our room or in our basket. Something we did it, and I would like to recognize that. Do you remember 2005, 2006, when the Latino community immigration reform was the McCain-Kennedy, and this happened in Colorado. And by then, many groups with Asians, immigrants from Africa as well, they came together. And I remember from 2006 to 2009, seeing many collaborations, intersection between different people of colors. So it's possible, but we need to find the momentum that we can come together and to create a plan where we can support each other and we can recognize each other as a only one family that we need it.
I would say that probably the thing that stood out, one of the three things that stood out the most, excuse me, is just how differently we're trying to work and how differently we're trying to build our organization from the ground up. And I think that, you know, to talk about white supremacy is one thing, but then also to kind of see how white supremacist culture is embedded in institutions is a whole different thing. And so, you know, when you've been inside institutions as a student or, you know, in just your work life, you start to develop a certain understanding. And so when you have the opportunity, you know, which is why it's so important for each one of us to be in the leadership positions we are in our organizations, is that we can bring a certain cultural ethic, a certain set of values into the work that we do and embed it from the beginning. So whether it's Frontline Farming or whether it's Project Protect Food Systems or the Promotora Network, you know, we infuse that desire to be, you know, Maurice talked about Ubuntu, you know, I am because we are, you know, we try to infuse those types of ethics into everything we do. And that's part of what allows us to be successful, because we're cultivating relationships with honoring and respecting people and wanting to work in the right ways. And that that's not a thin layer over the top of what we do. That's built into what we do and how we do it. So I think that's one piece. I think really trying to facilitate, you know, I think that folks don't necessarily see how much we try to facilitate, you know, other organizations and being successful. I think that's really important, you know, to show up when and where possible for folks, to let them know that, you know, their success is important to you. And, you know, recognizing that those types of relationships, those organizations, those individuals will support you as well. So we do spend a lot of time building relationships in various ways. And then I think the last thing, which is actually just kind of funny to me, you know, a lot of times we're in those rooms fighting, you know, and, you know, you sit in various rooms where policy decisions are being made, and it dawns on you, it's like, oh, wow, this is where this inequality, this is where inequity is perpetuated. And we are the only 2 or 3 or 1 person in here who is going to say anything in any way that's going to disrupt that very typical flow of the way those conversations go. And so, you know, I don't think, and I'm sure this is true for all of us, people don't necessarily recognize and see how much we fight in rooms, in small rooms for different reasons. So I think that's important to acknowledge as well.
Can I mention something very briefly? Regarding with Damian, your comment, something we are facing in a very traditional communities, many nonprofits, very focused in charity. What's happened is when we are seeing more, we are listening more the word equity, maybe it's because not necessary commitment with equity, is more because behind of the word equity with this language are coming grants. It's coming are more money. Sometimes our experience is when we are building something, somebody else is destroying what we are doing. And this happening with during the COVID, we were seeing how resilient our immigrant community is. And people say, no, I am okay. I am low-income families. We have some savings, so we are okay. And just recovering and continue working. But other organizations was completely the opposite. It's, hey, we have money. We want to pay you everything. members of HAP say, what is wrong with those guys? They are offering, I don't need money. We need something different, right? So this is, but this is the rural America. It's very focused in charity, and the way our, and the business is to have poor people. And I am fighting for that because I don't like it. In the moment we are organizing, we are creating advocacy, leadership, capacity in the community, somebody else is coming with a different philosophy. And so I would like to tell you that this is a big challenge, the biggest challenge we are having. Even we have white supremacists and very dominant white culture here with racism. But sometimes our nonprofit organizations who are very focused in charity are doing the worst. Just to mention that how important and need to be very focused in the work we are doing, building a strong leadership and building dignity for our families, no matter who we are. It does make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just gonna, I mean, that's why it's so important, you know, to kind of, it's asset based, you know, and it's when you're looked at from the outside, it's based on deficit, you know, and many nonprofits that start out with brown and black leadership, indigenous leadership, from a money perspective, oftentimes can start from a deficit, you know, and that's a reality. And so when we're talking about that, then it's like we already recognize, like I said, we have our own resilience. Like we don't need money, we need something else. And only we know what that something else is. You can't tell us from the outside. And so it's like, how do you support that work? How do you support the resilience that already exists in communities rather than coming in and trying to create some resilient structure that nobody's going to participate in because it's not of the people?
No, those are really important questions, huh? I mean, I think all of us are kind of sitting here thinking through all of these things because at the base of a healthy relationship, let's just look at a healthy relationship. It takes what Ricardo is saying. It takes acknowledgement, takes listening, takes respect to see the other person, no matter what the history has been in the past. For our Native community, it takes a lot. I mean, I would like to kind of think about the word equity for us. You know, equity for us and in our organization, what you won't see a lot is us talking strongly because we realize that we're in mixed audiences and we understand the, you know, I think to Amy's point, one of the goals of our organization is to not activate somebody's PTSD or anxiety. To Ricardo's point, it's important to acknowledge that a lot of people got a false border. A lot of our Apache community is still in Sonora and Oaxaca, and they're 67% Native American, and yet, you know, they're paying for immigration fees and they're paying to become a citizen when their ancestors were part of my ancestors, and we used to meet at Chaco Canyon. So, you know, what you don't see a lot on our website or on our Facebook is the actual in-community building that we do. We've been election judges in Ward, Colorado to study the miner community and what happened to the non-Native people that were European Americans in Ward, Colorado, and to see the after effects and impacts to white families, people who identify as Americans, people who are homeless inside those forests. You don't see, you don't hear us bragging about Carla Takoni Olasani, who's one of our founding women who is out there delivering with the Denver Public Library Mylar bags to keep the homeless warm. We're getting notified of sweeps so that we can see what's happening. And I want you to imagine with me, just one moment. I want you to look in my heart. I want you to see, and this is what I share with people all the time. These are my homelands. This is not a piece of property. It's not something that is an object. This is Grandmother Earth. She lives and she breathes. And you're part of that. But until we can start to do what Ricardo said, respect each other, see each other with our hearts and our minds, we're going to continue to participate in the chaos of what the government has brought here. Now, what I will say to each and every one of you on the panel and each and every one of you out there is that I have yet to know of any person or people that have come here that weren't sold into some type of slavery, like the Dutch and the Dutch companies, and they were white and they were forced into work. A lot of the Germans that came across that committed the genocide with Shivington and Governor Evans and Colonel Custer and the rest of them. Teller County, Teller, that name came from, that name specifically took away all of our rights to prayer. And I have to go into these areas every day of my life. Every day of my life, I have to know that my Hispanic relatives, my cousins, they're literally my bloodline cousins from the South direction, that they are suffering, that they are not treated equally or right. I know that the families that I grew up with identified as Black Americans, the Bates, the Browns in Pueblo, Colorado, and they were my best friends. I learned so much about power and movement through the Chicano movement, through that part of our band of the Apache Nation de Colorado, the Chicamis, now known as Chicanos. And every Sunday they're out there in Pueblo, still protesting that Columbus Day bust that frightened me when I was a child, and went into McClellan Library where it's in front of and read all about what Columbus did. And that wasn't something that anybody told me to do. I just wanted to know why this face was there. And that face of white supremacy and domination is still there. You know, what people don't see about our organization is the 14-hour days I put in volunteering, the 12-hour days, you know, that our executive director, because I have epilepsy, has to take care of me, and I still have to show up to work even though there's not a paycheck, because this is not about money. And when we say, what do we need something else. We need each other, and we need our communities, and we need our families, and we need love and respect and clean water and healthy food. And we need to see each other when we're in the streets with happiness and not anger. We need to know that our police and our communities are part of us, that they're there to protect, like the Custer County Sheriff's Department has been doing for me. And we need to know that county governments need to acknowledge the existence of the white supremacy in these areas. And we need to do something about it, not talk about it, not fight about it, not get violent, but we need to educate each other on the differences in our communities. When I think of Hartselle, Colorado, when I think of these rural communities, these are the last places that some of these non-natives have to come to. And they face the same substance abuse, drug, alcohol, molestation, child trafficking, human trafficking, being treated bad at work. You know, this is a systemic issue of inhumanity. And it's only by us taking on that accountable responsibility, that autonomy, that health, that empowerment of ourselves to say, I see you, Amy, and I hear what you're saying, and it isn't right. But what can we do to work together? Because we are women and we are matriarchs. We are all come from tribal indigenous cultures. Even the Dutch comes from somewhere. They used to be called Boers. Okay, so like, if we can start to look at each other and sit down with open minds and hearts and solutions, we can get rid of some of this separation. And the reason that I know that it works, guys, is because nobody's asking Native elders, but if you all just would say, here's a $300 honorarium so you can pay your rent because I'm respecting you and I want to hear what you can teach me, right? And listen, just listen to them. All this chaos existed here before, and we found ways to find peace. So don't give up hope, okay? And, you know, Amy, Alicia, Ricardo, all of you, each one of you, your families had to struggle to get you here too. And your families at some point in time had to fight back. But you're here now. So if we can move forward with respect and ethics, we don't have to agree how we wear our hair, what kind of earrings, or hey, maybe you went to Saks Fifth Avenue and bought that Trish McEvoy lipstick and I don't like it. We don't need to care about these little small things. What we need to say is that what we've said here before as Apache people, let me offer you my best blankets. Let me give of my best water, my best food. Let me give, let me share with you our way forward in peace and unity and love and mutual respect. It's not difficult, but it takes individual responsibility and accountability to say, I am willing to take that risk to sit down with you as another person, as another human becoming, and listen to your story of how you struggled, of how your family came through this pain to get you here. And now that you're here with this blessing that you wake up in my homelands with the sun shining and the sun setting over the mountains, and the Arkansas is still running since 50 AD. Thank goodness they haven't drained it yet. But until we start to work together, until we start to see each other in unity, the white supremacy agenda will continue. They'll continue as they want to, and we can stop it because we can do it together.
I'll say this. I think that our, when we look at some of our services, what we do, when we look at some of the trainings and we look at DEI stuff, and we look at interrupting white supremacy, and we looked at implicit bias, people get really emotional, right? Because we have to look at ourselves. And we talk about a lot that this work doesn't just happen in our heads. So we do like a lot of these practices so that it's not just intellectualized. And so we're really pro the sharing of emotion. And I feel like it's the kind of oppressive regime that tells us that rage is bad or that anger is bad. And so I would say, I would say bring rage, because rage is such a, as an emotion, as a spiritual energy, it's really beautiful, because a lot of social movements are born out of rage. A lot of revolution, a lot of community building is born out of rage, because rage is what happens when we know that we need to move from somewhere into something else many times, not all the time, but many times. And so I would say, like, creating spaces where we can like share and unpack our rage. And because change making work is relational, and I don't know that we can really relate if we can't like keep it 100% and show up and show our truth and share our rage and share our anger, and then look at what we want to do kind of with that energy and with that fire. Fires, like a fire can tear down, but fires keep us warm at night. Fires also decrease so that we can recreate too. So I would say, I'm about to take us somewhere else. Let me respect our facilitator, but I think that like rage is an emotion that we're taught to suppress and feel guilty about, but there's a lot of beauty in rage and where it can go.
Thank you all. That was amazing. I want you guys to talk some more actually instead of me. So I'm going to take some questions from the audience. We're going to answer 2 or 3 of these. We have a question from an anonymous attendee who's interested in the role of philanthropy in your work. In what ways does philanthropy need to change in order to authentically support the change you are making? And how can funders better support your organizations? I think that was touched on a little bit, but if there's more to add to that.
All right, I'll take this one. So there needs to be an acknowledgement. Sand, when we go to the beach and you dig a hole, anybody ever heard that story about how like you dig a hole and the sand keeps coming back in? Well, see, kind of ethically, if we don't look at returning the land where the decision makers and the stewards have always been here, and we don't look at working through those things together, it's never going to be right here. It's never going to be right. And I'm going to tell you why. Our grandfathers, our babies, they're buried through this land, and people come through, and it's your right as an American citizen to undig them and put them in a museum or send them to somebody, okay, to a tribe. Might not even be their own tribe, because we all transversed and migrated through this area, including Ricardo's people. And people come in and they want to put in subdivisions, and they want to put in fracking, and they want to take the water. And the people in rural communities don't even have access to their own water. And when they do, like in Ward, it's poisoned from mining. So until things are ethically refocused in philanthropy to say this is what's due to people who have survived genocide, this land has to be acknowledged, the mountains, the plains, there has to be apologies made, but there has to be behavioral change to go with those apologies. Until those things are completed, no one is going to rest. Not just us as Native people, but people are not going to rest, because the truth is that no matter who is here occupying in government from local to federal, the truth is still the truth. And the truth is that this land has been stolen through policy litigation, through people coming here and occupying it, through people not asking permission to be here. When you do not ask permission of the land, I'm going to tell you as a descendant of somebody who's been here since at least 50 AD in this area, when you do not acknowledge the land, the mountains, the trees, the birds, the insects, the water, the grains of sand that we have become and that we will become time and time again as Native people, if you don't acknowledge that, you won't rest, okay? And my whole mission in life is to bring things together. My whole purpose that I have been prepared for by my family and by my community is to be here with you each, to give this message, to say, please do what's right. That's what philanthropy is supposed to be. We don't charge our people for helping them. We don't charge them for medicine. We don't charge them for water, and we don't charge them for where to sleep. But in this country that's come to my homelands, we have homelessness, starvation, we have people who are displaced who don't know where they belong, we have PTSD, we have anxiety, we have depression. These things are curable. These things can change, but you have to ask for help first, and we teach every one of our students that. So in philanthropy, until people realize that ethically they have to do what's right, spiritually they have to do what's right, physically you have to do what's right, emotionally you have to do what's right. If you do not do what's right and good, you will not rest. And that's not me saying that. That's my grandma telling me, Nancy Ray, you have epilepsy. Every day you live, you better do right and you better do good by those people, by the people that are in our land, whether you know them or not. If they're a stranger, they still belong to your responsibility. And I am trying to uphold that the best that I can in a world of violence and destruction. And I don't want to see it anymore here in Colorado or in our territory. This violence, anytime violence erupts, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's police violence, whether it's riot violence, it echoes and we all get sick and we all feel it worse than an earthquake. And as individuals, we can change that. So philanthropy, people out there in foundations that use the name of this state, that name came from Mangus Coloradus. That came from our ancestor. And the state is named after him, and he was beheaded and his head was put in the Smithsonian. This is not joking. This is serious stuff, and we have to do better. So that's my challenge for you. That is my prayer, to have peace in my homelands, to have peace between us, to work together in the interest of human beings and all Hoxton, all living beings that you can see creation in. This is our responsibility. My responsibility is not to make $50,000 a year for an organization. It's not to belittle or to harm someone. It's to teach love and respect and to say, join us, please. Help us with everything that's going on. Not because you feel guilty or feel shame. Do it because you're a human being, a human becoming, because you know what's right and we can do it together. That's my message for each one of you in terms of philanthropy. And it starts at home. It starts in your own house with how you treat yourself first, so that you can gain that love and respect for yourself to give it to other people. And we can do it. And we will do it. But we got to do it together. Otherwise, it's just chaos.
I have a comment regarding with the philanthropy, and I can tell you our experience as organization. When we started in 2005, 2006, we had only in the bank like $15,000. Was not enough to pay the one single staff. But we decided to do it, to have an organization not only for one community, but for 6 communities, 6 counties. It's a very big place. So glad we had amazing leaders, not only Latinos, but also from the receiving community. And we were knocking doors with foundations, big foundations, asking for support. When they realized we were Latinos, supporting many, including immigrants, but immediately assuming undocumented people, they reject us. Chinook Fund was few of the organization, foundations, funds supporting HUB from the beginning. Chinook and other small foundations in Colorado giving us $1,000, $2,000. For us was a lot money. I can tell, a lot money. And we survived thanks to those small contributions. And we learned this work is not about money, it's about commitment. We need to advance using our own capacity, donating our time. Later was changing. Some foundations, bigger foundations, were putting more attention in equity and say we need to support minority groups and those stuff. But in the beginning, we had this experience, and we forever with our community members, our boards, we appreciate so much, and we value the support from Chinook. It's a part of our family. And many other small foundations giving us a lot support, moral support. They believe in us, and this is a gift that we received from the beginning. So this was our experience, and I can tell you was our was a good time. We had a great memories by them, and continue. We are here. We are together.
I would love to speak to this question because I was just ranting about it with a sister of mine who's in the movement work. I think, this past summer, the kind of summer of resistance after we saw the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, we saw this kind of corporate shift. Corporations were willing to finally say Black Lives Matter, and here's our commitment. So we started seeing some more free giving and less restricted giving. But there's a new sort of gatekeeping that our organization is being confronted with. And that is kind of, as I mentioned, we're working on acquiring property. And Nancy, thank you for reminding me to acknowledge that property would be on the land of the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, the Ute. And we've done a great job, raising funds with our community. We've done a great job building a freedom school for 3 years and doubling enrollment every single year, even in COVID. We've done a great job building our base. We've done what Black grassroots organizers in Denver are supposed to do. So now when we go to foundations about, the capital campaign that we need for this building, or, will you make a matching gift to help us launch this project? The new level of gatekeeping it's not we're not going to give you money anymore. It's we need your 20-year plan. What's the 10-year plan? What's your 20-year plan? How do we know this is a feasible investment for 20 to 40 to 50 years? We're Black organizers, volunteers, a lot of us, Black people. We don't know. We don't have I don't have a 20-year plan. And I'm happy for people who do. That's exciting. That sounds great. We're just excited that we're in a position financially to be able to think about this in a real way and approach banks and approach major foundations and ask for 6-figure, 7-figure commitments. That's huge for us. Like Ricardo said, I will never forget I will never forget taking our first grant check to the bank, and it was $2,500, and you couldn't tell me a thing. Like, I took a picture of it. Like, it was everything. So to now be in the position where we're having 7-figure conversations, where we're having these sustainability conversations and building a physical home for our community, a physical safe space for our community, to have the gatekeeping be this, well, you don't have the property picked out. And then when we want to pick out the property, well, you haven't laid out your budget in a 20-year strategic planning way, and the portfolio and the this and that, so the gatekeeping in philanthropy continues. It's just taken on a new form. And we really need philanthropists. The questions that they ask us, we need you to give the answer. Give us the resources to get the answer. If you need to see a more detailed plan from us, or a proposal in a different format from us, you give us the resources to get the person who can teach us to do that, or teach us to do that. Because we've done our part. So I really need philanthropists and people at the foundation levels and giving levels to recognize the ways in which you have taken steps forward towards equitable giving, and you have centered Black lives and Indigenous lives and all the marginalized people with your giving, but also really look carefully at how you are still gatekeeping those funds and who is being allowed to access those funds based on levels of privilege.
I'm gonna have to second that, and I think that Nancy Ray's comments are it's interesting because those are foundational, right? Like, almost none of the rest of this conversation can happen until that part, and we also know that that's the most challenging piece. But then, so to move on from there, and just to kind of second what Amy was saying, just in terms of, like, not to be too jargony, but this organizational capacity, and within the context of our experience with funders and philanthropy, a lot of it at the beginning was that folks wanted to fund programs but not fund people, and that becomes incredibly problematic, right? Because then, because then we're working for free, and again, each one of us has and will and would always in this work, because it's from our heart, we would do it for free, right? But at the same time, we know that we're existing within a set of structures where we don't have to do it for free, right? And it's really about the way that philanthropy, the questions that they ask, the ethics that they approach it from, but then also just really recognizing that people's labor is valuable, and the expectation cannot be that, oh, they'll work for free, so we'll only fund X, Y, or Z. We're a farming organization that wants to hire farmers, wants to bring people in to do this work because it's valuable, and it's valuable for individual people in terms of their own health and healing. But we're also going to pay them more than the living wage, right? We're also going to provide them with benefits where nothing comes out of their paycheck. And so that helps us to build our organizational capacity. That helps us to hire people who not only want to stay, but maybe they want to come back, right? And so then that's enhancing the overall health of our organization. As Amy said, if we want to do things like apply for bigger grants, apply for USDA grants, get our own 501c3, then we need to have resources that help us to expand our capacity, so that those of us that are doing the work can still do the work that we're being funded to do, and not be stretched necessarily to be doing these other things. So, like, building out that organizational capacity is important, and that's not the same thing as technical assistance, right? And we really need to distinguish those from one another.
And to be honest, I can't say anything that hasn't already been said. Because, like, really, it's like in terms of, like, this conversation about expanding or the evolution of philanthropy, it's just what everybody's talking about, really about, like, centering the organization without centering the reality of the organization, right? And then how do we make this question is like, how does philanthropy become more of a long-term relationship, right? And that's looking at the context of that reality piece. And so, you know, I'm just gonna really affirm what everyone is definitely so eloquently already talked about, is that, you know, there's the organization, there's organizational reality, and both, you know, need to be looked at fully for the relationship to work, and it should be relational.
Thank you. So I have one last question. We have about 2 minutes to answer, but the question is, what is one action that you would like everyone on this webinar to take in the next 2 days to support the work that each of you are doing?
I respond by chatting to Eric, who was asking for this question, but what I say is what I did this morning. This morning I contact the regional office from our senator to say please, the new administration in the White House, they need to be brave and don't be afraid. We need to recover a lot after 4 years of dismantling our democratic system. Many achievements we had before. We need to recover that and to do more. It's true, we are very divided, but this is the reality. It's the time to put the energy, the efforts for our minority groups and help us to unify. I think we can do it together with our elected officials, community leaders, Anglos, our allies, foundations. We need to find a way how we can come together in order to make a real change. Yeah, it's one action.
Thank you, Ricardo.
I would say first, please email, call your representatives and ask them to speak out about the civil war and genocide taking place in Ethiopia, because Black lives everywhere matter. Second, I would challenge folks who have kind of arrived to the movement for Black lives to dig deeper, to take a look at, you know, you've got your yard sign, you understand that we're allowed to say Black Lives Matter now. Dig deeper to try to understand why Black leadership, Black women leadership are saying defund the police. Dig deeper to find out why Black students want SROs out of school. Dig deeper to find out why we center Black trans women in our work. And you know, once you've kind of come to the surface of the table, I think really digging into the substance of it on a deeper level, the parts that still make you uncomfortable, the parts that you still don't understand, the slogans you still don't like to see on signs, challenge yourself, get uncomfortable with those, and dig in to gain more of an understanding that's led by Black people, Black women, Black queer folks.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines. You know, it's tough, but to do something that really kind of challenges yourself. You know, I think doing something concrete like getting registered for diversity, equity, and inclusion training, even if you're not quite sure that that's going to be something that you're going to really, you know, enjoy. I think that there are some concrete and tangible steps. I know that we're about to experience a very serious crisis and escalation in hunger in this city, across the state, in rural areas. And so I think anything that you can do to outreach to food banks, to whatever organizations that exist in your community, and to provide them with some resources, whether that be monetarily or whatnot, I think would be really, you know, one of the key things that we can do, because people are really going to be suffering even more now in these coming months. And I know that hunger is going to be something that's acute in every community across the state, across the country.
Um, Selfishly, I want to say come to the CSC DEI training in January. That will happen, right? Which you can do by going to creativestrategiesforchange.com and learning about what we do. But I would say in terms of like, it's really resonated everybody say, like, in terms of like looking at, I would say challenge yourself to practice equity, right? For yourself, like what are you going to support yourself? Like what is your personal plan? Find something to unlearn. I think that we all operate in this country, in this culture that operates under a system of oppression. So no matter what our identities are and what our challenges are, like we all are under the spell of this narrative, right? And so when we look at like undoing the traditions of violence and oppression, like how do we do that? Like make a personal plan. So what's one thing you will unlearn, and find someone to keep you accountable, right? If I say I want to begin to undo the violence that exists within me because I live in this country, right? Like that's cued in my head if I don't make a plan. And if I don't call, like Nancy, or if I don't call someone else, you know what I mean? That I'm just, it's kind of like it's an intellectual exercise. So commit to equity, make one action, read something, do something, reach out to something. Everyone else has gave some really good examples. And the only thing I would say is find someone to hold you accountable. Who are you going to check in with in 30 days and say, did you do that? What was your breakdown like when you realized, that you, are under the spell of kind of violence and oppression, right? So like, I would say make a plan for yourself and find a buddy that holds you accountable.
Okay, you ready? One thing, love. Love greatly. Every day, when you get up in the morning and you see that sun, no matter if it's, 4 o'clock in the morning, sometimes we're up real early waiting for that first sunlight in our community. But maybe you wake up at 9. I'm gonna ask you to love. When the sun comes up, love the sound of the bird singing. Love the sound of the sun rays kissing Nigodsan, grandmother earth, the grandfather sky, and grandmother earth are still connected, no matter what any two-legged thinks about power or who they are. Remember when you see yourself in the mirror and you meet your own eyes, to see yourself with love, to see what you sacrifice and give. In Apache culture, to sacrifice, to go 4 days without eating. When we first came through the anomalies and all of the things that were happening with the climate change, 4 days in our communities, we fast. That means water. That means maybe a clear broth. But we know how to endure. All of the veterans that are out there, I want to tell you, I am thinking about you and that I love you. And all the elders that are out there fighting for their lives, I love you too. And all those Diné Navajo fighting for their lives with COVID. To every single human being and human becoming in this country they call the United States, but more importantly on the homelands, Turtle Island, that you remember that you are love, that you speak love, that you see love, that you breathe love, and that you give love to this earth. Because this grandmother earth is not an object. She is a living, breathing, functioning being who needs to be acknowledged, and that we need to grace her with our love. When you go outside and you feel like you're stressed because there's some police officer following you, we know that happens in our communities too. We know what happens. We're all aware, we talk, right? But still, when you're walking, walk with confidence, walk with love. Because whatever our breath is, Nuchi, sacred, it's part of the rest of the world. And whatever it is we think and speak and do becomes part of the universal signature of all of life. And so love greatly. I know I love Juliet. I love her kimchi. I love the way she thinks about everyone around her. And Damian, you're so well educated and well spoken. My friend, I hope you continue to speak because you resonate with purpose. And Mo, you resonate with love. And Ricardo, you resonate with truth. So in these ethics, see, they're not just words that the Greeks wrote down in some book. Ethics is love. It's the way that we live. And so if we can live with fear and live and think that fear and violence can move us to a direction and move us forward, I'm going to tell you, think about being a parent. Think about the love you have for a child you don't know that may be injured or in danger and what you would do for that child. And then turn that reflection around and let your child inside of you heal so that you can join us together. But be love. Because really at the end, guys, no matter what you believe, no matter how you pray, when you take that last breath and you reconnect and you reciprocate your life back to this universe, you want to know that you did right and you did good and you did this with love. So from Herbal Gardens Wellness, from our co-founders, our community that's been here for over 15,000 years, walk with peace, love, walk with respect, and we'll get a lot further together. Thank you for listening to my words. And again, thank you to my elders for allowing me to speak before you, to the Women's Advisory Committee that's on here, and to every single funder from Chinook. Every single one of you donors are making a difference, because every one of these people on this panel is working hard during COVID, and they're not even telling you how tired we all are. And we'll keep fighting, won't we, Damian? And we'll keep fighting, won't we, Mo? And Amy and Ricardo. We're not going to stop. It's not a job, it's a mission. So live your purpose, guys, and thank you so much for allowing me to attend with all of you. It was very humbling and gained a lot of hope from hearing all these answers and knowing that we can do it together. Thank you. Ehidna. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a quote from the author and activist and spoken word artist, Walida Mirsha. And she says, all organizing is science fiction, because in working for change, we must imagine a world that has never existed. And we have to collectively dream new worlds so that we can begin to create them. In this moment, what are 3 words that you would define what you believe the future would look like for our collective?
Okay, love, humanity, forward. Love, humanity, forward.
What very impactful for what we are living today, when moral values, it doesn't matter for many people here, for millions of people. I think I am not a religious person, but I can say that to bring back the moral values and truth is we need it.
One of my favorite writers, Ursula Rucker, in her Peace Libations, she has this quote she repeats often again, over and over again. She says, "Will we ever say never again and mean it?" And so to start my 3 words, one of them is going to be never. I'm going to say expansive, and I'm going to say dreaming.
I would say love, authenticity, and then humility.
I would say it is here. I don't believe it's science fiction. I believe the world we dream, the world we're working on, the world we're building, it is here. Those are my 3 words. It is here.
Thank y'all so much. That was very engaging and insightful, and I'm so glad that you all were here and that I was able to moderate this. So I think we touched on a lot of things. I think something that was really common between everybody was that importance of dignity and the importance of liberation and the importance of sovereignty, which is what the Chinook Fund is about. So it was exciting to see the embodiment of that mission in all of your organizations. Thank you again so much for coming and sharing and being so vulnerable and transparent and clearly authentic. I loved hearing the conversation. I loved interacting with you all. If you were moved by this at all, definitely please take a look at the website and donate to the Chinook Fund to make a donation to the grant funding that will go out to these amazing organizations. You can do that at chinookfund.org and indicate that it is from the Giving Project. And a reminder to the Chinook Fund project members, there will be a 5-minute break in between here, and then you'll reconvene at 8:05 in a separate Zoom. But everyone else, thank you so much. I believe Juliet has some slides, and then we will close up.
Yeah, we're figuring out this slide situation, but I just wanted to say just thank you so much for the incredible wisdom and expertise and generosity and just like depth you all shared with us tonight. I love Meet the Changemakers panel because frankly, it deepens my humanity. And I believe you all are offering that to all of our participants in this space tonight. So thank you for that. Yes, and just a note to the Giving Project members, we are going to have a private Zoom chat to debrief this conversation, how this will impact your ongoing fundraising and your grant making with us. So you've received the Zoom link from us previously earlier today, and it's also in the digital calendar and in the Zoom links document in your shared drive for current participants. For those of you who are joining us as guests, we thank you so much. We encourage you to ask questions of the Giving Project members who invited you into the space or the staff members who invited you into the space, to follow up with the grantee experts who were joining us tonight. You can you have information about the organizations. You can find their links to our website. And also if you want to join a Giving Project, we encourage you to participate in one of our information sessions. We have a last information session on December 1st, Tuesday from noon to 1:30, which you can find and register for at our chinookfund.org /giving project web link. So please do learn more about the Giving Project there. This is how we finance and support all of the amazing grantee organizations that you got to hear from tonight. And that's through the volunteer efforts of our community grant makers, many of whom invited you into this space tonight. So that's all I'll share on my end. We just want to say a hearty thank you again, and I will pass it back to Alicia just for any final closing words and gratitudes.
Awesome. Thank you, Juliet. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you for hanging in there with us for 2 hours. We appreciate that. Again, like Juliet said, if you all are interested in donating, donations are what allow the folks in the cohorts to provide funding to these organizations and provide support for the work that we all see there's a need for. So I encourage you to do that. But outside of that, I just am so gratuitous to have been here and to be able to have conversation with you all. So thank you. I hope that you all feel more enlightened after this. Definitely please take the evaluation at the end, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you to each one of you. Ricardo.
Thank you, Nancy.
See you at the next
Everybody.
thing. Get me all going up together. I'm liking it. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm all good to go. All right, I'm gonna go. I'll talk to you later.